Okay, when you are dividing decimals and whole numbers, if I have a number that is a whole number and I'm dividing it by a decimal, it doesn't matter how big or small the numbers are. Now that we know that we can add a decimal and a zero and we can keep dividing no matter what, I can divide a smaller number by a bigger number. I can take 4, a whole number, and divide it by a decimal because I know that I can add a decimal and zeros in my dividend. So if I have a number that looks, or a problem that looks like this is possible as long as I follow the steps I'm about to tell you. The first thing that you have to do is you have to move the decimal point to the right in the divisor. Okay, this is why it's important to know what the divisor, dividend, and quotient are in a division problem. Okay, you're going to move the decimal point to the right in the divisor to have a whole number. So basically, you want to make sure that you are moving that decimal as many times as needed until that decimal number becomes a whole number. Then you will match this same movement. If you move it 1 time or 2 times or 3 times, you will match that move in the dividend as well. So what does that look like? Okay, if I have a 4 in the dividend, but I have a decimal here, I start here and I move it to the right until my number now is a whole number. Okay? But if I don't have a decimal to move in the dividend, I start at the end of my whole number here, and then I move it to the right. So my decimal will end up here and I pop it to the top. Plug in that gap with 0, the hero. Okay? Now, we're going to add a 0. We're going to add a 0 after the decimal point, and we will continue dividing. So we're going to practice this several times so that you get the hang of it. We are now going to solve this problem. So we're just going to divide like normal. After I made my movement, I moved this decimal to the right until this became a whole number. But whatever I do to the divisor, I have to match that same movement to my dividend. And if I don't have a decimal, I just start at the end and then move to the right 1 place. Pop it up. So 3, guys, I am trying to record this lesson. So I need for you guys to follow along with me. If you have a question, raise your hand. But try to keep those side conversations like to a non-existent. No side conversations, please. Okay? All right. 3 goes into 4 how many times? 1. Okay, I'm just doing my normal division process steps at this point. 3 times 1 is 3. I subtract, I bring down. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. I subtract. I have nothing to bring down yet, but what can I add? A 0. The decimal's already there, so I don't have to add another decimal. I just add a 0 and bring it down. 3 goes into 10 3 times. And what are we already noticing? It's repeating. So this is called, over here in my little notes, this is a repeating decimal. And my final answer I will write as 13.3 with a line over it to show that that 3 repeats. We're going to do a couple more examples where we are dividing a whole number by a decimal. Okay, looking down at the bottom, we're going to do 8 divided by 0 and 125 thousandths. Which one goes inside the division box? The 8. So I'm going to put 8 here. I'm going to divide by 0.125. Now, I need to move the decimal in the divisor as many times as possible to make it a whole number. So here's my divisor over here. How many times will I need to move this decimal until this number becomes a whole number? 3. 1, 2, 3. My decimal has to end up, guys, My decimal has to end at the end of the number until it becomes a whole number. If I stop my movement here, I have 1.25. If I stop here, I only have 12.5. If I stop here, now I have 125. Okay? So whatever I do to the divisor, I have to also do in the dividend. So I start at the end, and then I go 1, 2, 3 places to the right. So it ends up right here. Plug in 0 the heroes. And then it goes straight up into my quotient. Now I can divide like normal. So it's like I'm dividing 8,000 by 125. So how many times can 125 go into, not 8, not 80, but 800? How many times? Anybody know? 6. Well, that is correct. Goes in 6 times. That is going to be 750. So I'm going to subtract 750, and I have 50 left over. I'm going to bring down this 0, which makes it 500, and 125 goes into 500 4 times, which is exactly 500. So my answer is 64. Okay, I want you guys to try the last example, and then we're going to check it. So 9 divided by 2,500. So y'all try it, then we'll check it. Okay, so when you do 9 divided by 2,500, you should have 36. Now, hold on. I need your voices off, please. Side conversations need to end. In 3, 2, 1. Okay. So on this, what you're looking at is here I had to change my divisor into a whole number, which means I moved that decimal 2 places to the right. I matched that movement in my dividend. If you're having side conversations, please end them in 3, 2, 1. Next person that talks without their hand up in the air and receives permission will be fined. Okay, I need to match that movement here. Again, this can be a challenging concept to grasp, but if we're paying attention and we're practicing and we're doing, we will really start to get the hang of it, okay? Once I match that movement, I've got to remember to pop that decimal straight to the top, and now you're done with your decimal. You don't have to worry about it anymore, and you just divide like normal, okay? Question.
I just realized this, but before all of this, if you just count how many times 25 goes in 1 and then multiply that number by the whole number, you get the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's how simple.
Mm-hmm.
Like, see, 4 times 25 equals 1, right? 4 times 9, 36.
We are wrapping up our last page of notes today where we divide decimals by decimals. So when I start dividing decimals and decimals, my same rules apply that we just wrote down a second ago. We move the decimal point in the divisor to the right as many places as needed to have a whole number. Okay, my steps are off to the side. We have 2 problems that we're going to work together. The first one is 75 hundredths divided by 5 tenths. Which one goes inside the house?
7,500.
Yes, okay, so I'm going to set this up 0.75, and I'm dividing it by 0.5. Okay, I want to move the decimal point in the divisor to the right to have a whole number. And we want to match that move in what position? The dividend. Thank you for using that word, dividend. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm taking this decimal, moving it 1 place because it makes it a whole number, and moving it 1 place here and popping it to the top. I'm done with it. I don't have to worry about it anymore, and I can just divide like normal. I'm going to follow my process steps to get this problem done. Okay, 5 cannot go into 0, but it can go into 7 1 time, which is 5. Subtract, bring down. And then 5 goes into 25 5 times, which is exactly 25 with nothing left over. So my final answer for this one is 1.5. Decimal just pops straight to the top. I write my final answer down here. And now we can move on. I'm going to let you guys try the next one, and then we'll check it. You should have set up your problem so it looks like this. We will start checking it together in just a minute. Just make sure you set it up correctly before you keep going. If you think you have your division done and you're to a stopping place, take a look at the board and compare your work with the work that I have up on the board. Do you notice a pattern? Yes, what do you notice?
The 240, it keeps on going and going and going.
So 3 times 6 is 216. When I subtract that from 240, I'm left with 24 again. And if I add another 0, it turns into another 240. So it's going to keep repeating. That pattern is starting, which means that this 6 is going to be repeating. So when I write my answer, I want to make sure that I write my answer to show that 6 repeating. I don't have to write a bunch of 6s. All I need to do is write 7.16 with a bar over the 6.